Alright, welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my power rankings for the Japanese Grand Prix. So obviously a day earlier, but I have time to do them before I go to bed, so might as well get them done today instead of waiting till tomorrow like I usually do. Starting at number 20, dropping one position from last race. I think kind of an obvious one, but Logan Sargent. Big heavy crash in qualifying, which is definitely not what the team needs at the moment. Which could definitely hurt them with the cost cap. And then in the race, locked up and hit Bottas on lap 5, ending his race and then getting a 5-second penalty. So I think pretty justifiable moving Sargent down one spot. Moving up one spot is Lance Stroll. So qualifying was still a big struggle yesterday in qualifying. The race made up some positions, was in 11th at one point, and then kind of had to retire and pit with a rear wing failure. So obviously not his fault, but still it never really looked like points was on the cards today. Number 18, staying in the same position, Zhou Guanyu. So for Zhou, qualified by his teammate Bottas, had that bit of a mistake in qualifying. Of course, said he was blocked with the dirty air or whatever. But that being said, I think could have capitalized a little bit more in qualifying. They did look like they have really good pace during some of the free practice sessions. In the race, kind of anonymous, wasn't really there, was kind of near the back, faster than the Haas, slower than the Alpha Tauris, and with his teammate out, we can't really get a good comparison. Oh, and then of course the other thing to note is that he, of course, picked up damage from the debris from Bottas and Albon's contact on lap 1. Of course, not his fault. Number 17, staying in the same position, is Nico Hülkenberg. Out-qualified by Magnussen, but beat Magnussen in the race. Couldn't really justify moving him up or down. That being said, not a ton of standout performances, but with the hassle being the way it is, I felt it was best just to leave him where he was. Okay, number 16. Number 16, dropping 4 positions from last race, is Sergio Perez. So I think really Perez's weekend can be summed up in four points. Qualifying was not particularly good. Out qualified by about 7/10 to Verstappen. Contact on the opening lap with Hamilton, I think 50-50 really, but had a poor start, so that didn't help things. Number 3, safety car infringement, getting that penalty for not going into the correct position for the coming out of the pits during the safety car. That's his mistake. And then number 4 was spinning around Kevin Magnussen. So for Perez, I don't really know what to say. I think it was a pretty awful weekend, one of his worst weekends overall in this year, up there with Monaco and some of the other ones as well. But still, he is still second in the championship, only 33 points ahead of Hamilton, and 170 odd points behind his teammate. So not great for Perez, so he moves down 4 positions. Number 15, who did I put 15? Okay, so this is where things got a bit tough. But number 15, moving down 2 positions, is Valtteri Bottas. So Bottas qualifying doesn't go particularly well. I think they did expect a bit more pace from the car. Race starts, contact with Albon. At first I thought it was, a 50-50 racing incident, but I went on YouTube, looked at a replay of the of the contact. And Albon really, I think, if you look at where Albon's car is relative to the edge of the track, he doesn't really move that much. Bottas, however, moves quite severely over to the right side. Kind of looks like he gets caught out by another car in front of him, and then kind of makes contact with Albon, and both end up with damage. So I'm putting a little bit more blame on Bottas. Bottas, not a whole lot, but just a little bit more. Of course, the crash with Sargent, not his fault, and then from there his race was really over. Number 14, Yuki Tsunoda. So for Tsunoda, not really the race he would have liked, but qualifying I think went really well. Qualified P9, qualifying in Q3, out-qualified Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin as well, showing that Alpha Tauri does have some good pace in it. The race between himself and Lawson very, very close. Both of them kept undercutting each other on strategy, and I think really that determined how the race went. But that being said, very, very close between Lawson and Tsunoda, which, to be fair for Tsunoda, it's probably not a great sign if your rookie teammates that close to you in race pace that quickly. But that being said, I do think overall as a weekend, it was a pretty positive weekend, and I did think he deserved to be ahead of Perez and Bottas, who I think both had pretty poor weekends. Number 13, moving up 2 positions, and again, kind of because of Bottas and Perez moving down, is Kevin Magnussen. That being said, the real big positive for Magnussen outqualified Nico Hülkenberg, which is something that he hasn't been doing a whole lot this year, so it's great to see that he's able to do that. Of course, his race was ruined by Perez, getting spun around, not his fault, so that's why he finished behind his teammate Hülkenberg. That being said, still, I think in the Haas, pretty positive weekend, outqualifying his teammate. Number 12, Liam Lawson. So for Lawson, gets outqualified by Tsunoda, but that being said, beats him in the race, which I think is pretty impressive. 4th race in F1. I think this was probably the first real chance we got to see Tsunoda versus Lawson head-to-head in the race, as Tsunoda hasn't even completed a lap in the previous 2 Grand Prix. So I think really acquitted himself well, and I think it's disappointing that he's not going to be on the grid. It's, well, highly likely he's not going to be on the grid. I know Williams' seat's still available. I don't think he's really a candidate for it. But yeah, basically highly disappointing, I think. And, you know, it's possibly his last Grand Prix for quite a while if Ricciardo is looking to return for Qatar. Number 11, dropping 1 position, is Pierre Gasly. So for Gasly, decent race, getting a P10 finish. That being said, beaten by his teammate Ocon. Ocon really opportunistic with the strategy, but for Gasly, I think had some good races, good race pace. Outqualified his teammate yesterday as well, but that being said, I think Ocon really made the strategy for today work, which is why I've decided to put in 10th Esteban Ocon. So really talking about both of them at the same time. Ocon, I think, also had a really good race in Singapore the week before, so I think, you know, recently, I think just on the balance of that, I think I put Ocon ahead in number 10. Number 9, dropping 2 positions, and this is where things got really tricky. I think anywhere between 4th, even 3rd and 9th, I think were very, very close, and this whole mess of drivers was really tough for me to kind of think of what order to put them in. But, you know, I've decided to put in 9th George Russell. So outqualified by his teammate Lewis Hamilton in the race, tries to do the one-stop strategy, doesn't really make it work, drops down to P7, the lowest placed driver of those top 4 teams, of course, excepting Perez. You know, that being said, I don't think it wasn't a great weekend for Russell, but I don't think it was awful either. I think he was a bit unlucky with how the whole situation with Hamilton and Sainz played out. But that being said, I've decided to drop him 2 positions. Number 8, only moving 1 position, but, you know, still really, really good result for this driver, and that is Oscar Piastri. So, you know, if I was doing a driver power ranking, like I've said many times, if I was doing a power ranking for each race individually, not considering other races, Piastri would probably be higher. That being said, Piastri, I think, really good result. Front row start, outqualified Norris. That being said, I think Norris clearly showed in the race that he was the faster driver, which is why I haven't moved Piastri up too much, given that I generally do put a lot more emphasis on the race than I do on qualifying. That being said, still 3rd place, first podium in F1, really good result for him. The McLaren car was excellent this weekend. Number 6, also moving up 1 position, is Charles Leclerc. So for Leclerc, I really think he got the most out of the car this weekend. 4th place finish. He looked close to Piastri in what I think was an inferior car, but a really good bounce back from Singapore, and I think a much better result for Piastri, for Leclerc this weekend. Number 5, okay. Fernando Alonso. So for Alonso, qualifying in the race a bit tough. Qualified 10th, finished P8. Had some really nice battles, though. I think, you know, it's hard. This is where it gets really hard to start separating car performance and driver performance, because, you know, if Alonso had finished P8 at the start of the year, that would have been a really disappointing result. But I think it's clear that the car has gotten a lot worse. It's a lot slower, and I think he really outclassed Stroll in qualifying. And in the race, I think really got the best out of the car. Was behind, of course, the leading 4 teams, but was ahead of the Alpines. Number 5, let's see, dropping 1 position is Alex Albon. So for Albon, it's tough to say. I think for Albon, of course, I think he was a bit disappointed with how qualifying went. And I think he obviously, even though he out-qualified Sargent, courtesy of Sargent not setting the lap time, for Albon, I think he could have wanted a little bit more. Contact with Bottas opening lap, not really his fault. Maybe a little bit of blame there, but honestly not really a whole lot. And then from there, his race was really over. So it's really hard to judge his race. I think they didn't really have the pace at this track all through practice and through the practice sessions. So it was really hard for me to try to decide where to put Albon. I was thinking to put him in like this range in 7th, 8th, 9th, but I decided that was a bit harsh given he didn't really do a whole lot wrong this weekend. And the only thing he really did was have contact with Bottas, which I kind of feel that Bottas was more to blame for. So only dropped him 1 position, but still not really a great weekend for Albon. Number 4, moving up 1 position, is Lewis Hamilton. So for Hamilton, you know, I was considering moving Hamilton down actually, but, you know, out-qualified Russell, that's good. Beats Russell in the race, makes that small mistake, but that being said, and then shoved Russell off afterwards while Russell was trying to overtake, which was a little bit naughty of him. But that being said, he decided to go with the 2-stop strategy and managed to undercut Sainz in what I think was a faster Ferrari. So beating that faster Ferrari, I think, was very important for him, and that's why I decided to move him up 1 position. That being said, all of these drivers have been pretty close recently. Number 3, staying in the same position, but you know, really close to this group here, and I think there's a real big separation from the top 2 and this group from about 2nd to 9th, 3rd to 9th. So for Sainz, out-qualified by Leclerc, beaten by Leclerc, not a great weekend as a whole. That being said, had some good battles, and I think, you know, after last week's result, which was so fantastic, I do think I cut him a little bit of slack and didn't really move him down. And also because the drivers here, I don't think any of them really had an absolutely outstanding weekend, so I've decided to keep Sainz in 3rd. Number 2, great result for this driver staying in the same position, is Lando Norris. 2nd place at the Japanese Grand Prix, 2nd straight 2nd place finish, actually. Really good result for him, out-qualified by Piastri, but in the race looked really, really strong, and was at points in the middle of the race, was setting fastest laps of the race, which is definitely a really good sign, showing that there is some pace in that car. That being said, still well off the pace of the Red Bull, and I think for Norris really got the most out of the car today and maximized his points return. Number 1, can't really be anyone else, can it? Max Verstappen. So takes pole by around 4/10 of no, actually it wasn't that. It was 5/10 of a second. Excellent result in qualifying. Out-qualified Perez by about 7/10. In the race, looked like he had a little bit of a poor start. That being said, kept Norris behind, kept Piastri behind as well. And for Verstappen, I think basically just controlled the race from there. Again, came home, dominated, won by 30 seconds, pretty much the standard Verstappen show that we're used to. And obviously helped, importantly for today, helped Red Bull clinch their 2nd straight Constructors title. So that's all for my power rankings for today. Of course, we now have a 2-week break until Qatar, so I do have a couple ideas. I think I have 2 or 3 ideas for videos I'm going to be doing in the meantime, and depending on what happens with Lawson, one of those videos may be about specifically about him. So thank you so much for watching. We've had gone, the channel has been doing really well lately, and you know, I'm really appreciative of and grateful for all of the support. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.